So you must have been here, David, when they appointed, or when you appointed Simon Rattle. Were you part of that?
Right. It seemed to be a very risky thing to do.
Did it?
Very risky, yeah.
How old was he?
Well, I suppose he was 20, early 20s.
Wow.
You know. And at the time the orchestra was looking for a conductor, but we were hoping to get somebody who'd got some experience and maybe a big name, you know. And there were cartoons in the local paper of, instead of a baton showing in front of the orchestra, it was a rattle, you know, baby's rattle. And one of the players saying, I think he does seem rather young. And yeah, it seemed to be a risk.
Did you work with him before he was appointed, or...?
No. I mean, funnily enough, he did do a concert in 1976 in Oxford with the CBSO. That was the first time they played with him. And I was still at university there. And I remember the posters outside the town hall. And that was the first time I think I saw the name.
So we came a bit later, I guess. And
yeah, I came in 1989. I worked with him for 10 years.
Yeah. Was he one of the reasons you came?
Yes, I mean we were living in Germany at that time, finishing studying, starting working professionally there, and suddenly this opening came up for the CBSO, and we didn't know anything about Birmingham, but we knew because people started talking about him, this young English conductor who was doing something really interesting in a provincial, was in London, you know, it was in a provincial city. We heard about it, we came, and that was it. And you came?
Yeah, I came a year later in 1990, and it was the only orchestra I wanted to be in. It was where it was happening. If something exciting was going to happen,
you were working in Scotland.
I worked briefly in Scotland in Scottish opera, but I sort of came out of college, did loads of auditions and got various trials, and then got offered a job very quickly and took it. But then thinking, oh, this is really where I want to be, because this is.
You came, yeah.
This is where they're challenging the repertoire, where they're, you know, if something exciting is going to happen in classical music, I want to be part of that. And
it was a buzz.
It was a real buzz
around him. You know, it was incredible.
Well, it was so exciting for us people that were already in the orchestra, that people like you were attracted to it, and we attracted some great players at that time, you know, the late 80s and early 90s. Yeah, but I'm talking about you. Yeah, definitely. And it was a sign that our reputation was really getting worldwide, you know, that we were attracting people from all over the world now.
Yeah.
But also the repertoire was incredibly broad. That was what was exciting to me.
I was thinking today, the amount of repertoire we learned with him. And the good, I mean, you know, been in a profession for a long time now, but any piece I learn with Simon, I don't need to look anymore. I know it backwards. I just take the music out of the library and say, I know this, I know this, exactly. I know that. And because he rehearsed it in a way, remember, that we knew everybody.
You were drilled into you, wasn't it?
Yeah, and it was amazing. The amount of I mean, from Baroque to really, really avant-garde, we used to do a lot of repertoire.
But then in the same program, we'd do Rameau with Three Screaming Popes or something like that.
I think that was one of his strongest points, and still is, the way he was a master in mixing styles.
But I think what he did achieve, really, almost, you know, at the vanguard of this movement, was the idea that a concert goer could expect music from 3 different centuries in one concert. Yeah. And before that, I think people had their likes and dislikes, and they would go to a program that they liked, and they wouldn't go to a program they disliked. And he purposefully mixed things up so that, I mean, he famously brought modern music to Vienna because of the Millennium series that we did. And, you know, the Viennese were notorious for being very conservative in their taste. And we would be playing Stockhausen to them. And they had to like it because he was conducting.
Hense, remember the Hense symphonies we did? They were outrageous, you know, very...
Raft of Medusa, do you remember that?
Yeah. Really, really strange music even for us, and he never compromised.
No.
I think he never compromised with repertoire, with anybody. Just he wanted to do something because he thought was good for the orchestra.
And I think there are always forces, aren't there, that want you to compromise because it's expensive to do that piece, or we won't be able to fill the hall.
Of course.
You know, and he persisted.
Would just go on.
Yeah, he supported the whole vision that it needs to be bigger than what goes on the platform. That actually we have to be ambassadors for the art, and that whether you're in a school or whether you're in an old people's home or whether you're in on the stage in the music verein, it's the same thing. You know, it's all part of communicating your love, your passion for the music that you play, that you think is valuable.
I think that's. I mean, it was first orchestra, UK orchestra, who actually was so active.
Yeah.
And he went into schools, didn't he?
Yeah,
he did.
You know, and being a percussionist himself, he had to go on the xylophone in the school, and he was really down to earth with it. It meant that he seemed very ordinary to us, didn't he? Really, because he was doing the same things as we were doing. Really, he loved his food and his wine, and he had his kids, and he was around all the time.
Yeah.
And he's only a couple of months younger than me, actually.
Oh, really?
So when he did join the orchestra at first, I didn't feel he was too young, obviously. I just thought, oh, this is great, somebody my age conducting. And then, of course, more and more people joined the orchestra who were actually younger than him. And it just seemed like we were a young team all going in the same direction.
Remember when we were doing a recording in Warwick Arts Centre, and he was expecting his baby to be born any moment, it was imminent. And he hired one of the first mobile phones. I remember he hired, because in those days, I was like those breaks. He had it by the podium. Yes. And we were in the middle of a session, and suddenly the phone goes. And everybody's, stop playing. Grab the phone and say, hello? Yeah? Wrong number. It was so funny. What happened in Warwick?
Yes.
It was a massive phone, the breaks. Everybody who looks at it.
Yes. Big novelty.
False alarm.
Yeah.
But also what I admire about Simon, and I think it's very important, that it's very good for the UK that he's coming back to UK now. No, a lot of good memories from him. And I think
what about the recordings? What do you remember? Any specifics?
Well, I was recording with him. I always remember it used to be so relaxed. The atmosphere was very relaxed,
It had to be though, didn't it? It was quite often a combination of try and play it like it's live, wasn't it?
Yeah.
And then the little bits that, we'd do big long runs, wouldn't we? So we'd run the whole of a movement. So it feels like, some recordings you do like bar by bar almost. Yeah. But he would do it as a sweep always, wouldn't he? And then if there are things that weren't quite as he wanted, or just little accidents that happen, or noises, then we just went back quite quickly. So, because it can be very painful, can't it, recording?
He was,
and you can lose the energy, you can lose the whole purpose of it.
He was very quick in recording. Remember, very kind of efficient with the time and with energy. And I have very good memories. I hate recordings. I don't like recordings anymore. It's just tedious sometimes. But with him, it was very quick. Yeah. Now, luckily enough, we do basically everything live. But we used those days, the modern pieces we used to do quite. But he was, he was very, very relaxed, and I was one of the key for me was that we always go to the session knowing the piece so well.
Yeah. Well, we've always rehearsed it to death, toured it usually, or performed it here, toured it, and then we record it. So it's been on a journey already.
It was at the end of the end product.
Exactly.
But he also had a deep understanding, I think, of how it was going with the musicians in the recording, and he could tell when things were beginning to get worse.
Yeah.
And we would have a break, and he'd know that it would be better after the break.
It's a really fine line, isn't it, when you're recording something really hard. If you push people too far, you could lose the whole recording. So it's really...
And brass players' lips.
And that's why you have to do it live, almost, because your first chance is usually your best at something really tricky.
But the amount of repertoire we record with him, and we perform with him, was enormous.
Yes.
You look back now, incredible.
Yes.
Towards the Millennium series, unbelievable.
Mark Anthony Turnage was interesting because Simon had a great respect for every detail, didn't he? And we would get that detail correct, and always consulting with Mark Anthony, just to see if it sounded right out the front and if it sounded right in the box. So he must have been a great conductor to work with for a composer.
But I think there were occasions, weren't there, when a composer would be trying to achieve something and written something that didn't achieve necessarily the effect that they wanted. So he could help, in a way, help the composer get the results that he wanted by changing something, marking it slightly differently, or bowing it slightly differently. Or
they were never imposing. He was
never exactly.
In a way,
is that what you want? Because you're not getting what you want.
Yeah.
And if it's not, then let's try it like this or like that. Is that what you want?
We did a CD of early Britain pieces, which were ostensibly, some of them, found in a suitcase up a chimney.
Really?
And also a piece that he was very fond of doing was the Symphony de Requiem.
Yes.
You must have done that.
Yeah. And the 4 interludes we did all over.
The 4 interludes,
Great piece.
And the Serenade for Horn
tenor horn strings.
I remember doing it with him. Yeah.
Yeah.
And he had a big impact in the city. Remember, he was like a celebrity in the city. People will know, shout things from across the street. Simon, hello Simon, you know.
Yes.
And because everybody knew him.
Yeah.
You know, because he was very frequent on TV or newspapers, but the city knew him.
Though of course Liverpool claims him as their own, as they would.
As everybody will, I'm sure. As Berlin,
as London will now.
London will now. Yeah.
I
mean, he came from Liverpool, but the main work, I think he's
yes.
Yeah.
It kind of, it was the foundations.
Yeah, the foundation of his work now.
Yes.
He kept going from where he started here, but the main thing was here.
And the foundations for us as well, I think, really.
Yeah, for us as well.
Would you agree or not?
Yes, I would. Yeah. I mean, we were known as the best French orchestra in Britain when Louis Frémaux was conducting us. And the other thing that Louis Frémaux did was to form the choir.
Right.
And the choir, in a way, was our secret weapon all the way through Simon's era, because, you know, they always sang superbly, whether it was on the Dream of Gerontius or
Glagolitic
Mass was
in
the first
Hamburg,
one.
from memory, in Glagolitic. I never forget that.
Yes.
The whole Mass in Hamburg there.
Yes. So, in a way, the choir slightly predated Simon, but Simon realised that he'd got a tremendous asset there. And with Simon Halsey, you know, that choir.
Partnership was excellent.
Yes, great partnership.
The Mahler symphonies are like a sort of rite of passage in orchestral music, aren't they? Once like you said, once you know them and you know them the way Simon, it's sort of part of your technique almost, isn't it? It's part of being an orchestral musician, being able to play those works. And he rehearsed them so well and performed them all over, didn't we? Different venues, different situations.
He knew every part so well. I remember before, some come across my memory now. I remember doing a sectional before one of the big Mahler symphony. I don't remember which number it was. We're going to perform it and record it afterwards, and I have to do a sectional with this section. Anyway, he sent me a little letter. It was 2 pages, A4.
Little letter.
Yeah, you know, I thought, Mario, you go to section and you say, okay, any passages we want to go through, no, exactly. I want that number, that bar, at this speed.
Really?
Everything. But he did that with me, with the violas, with the seconds, with the first, with the woodwinds, everything detailed. I want those accents really long. I want a lot of vibrato here, senza vibrato there. I want everything was there. It's like, wow, an essay. But it was so easy to do a sectional because you didn't need to do anything. Just let's do this number. Let's try to achieve this. It's just like how his brain works.
Yes.
And it was amazing. So ever so easy. And afterwards, of course, every detail was there.
I think you can hear that in the recordings though, can't you? It's that precision, and as you bore down through the layers or you listen to things more deeply, every detail is really solid.
Because he
and
knew in
balanced,
each
right?
section what he needs to to achieve, and how long this one, how short that one, what more accent here, this have to be heard, this not, I don't want to hear this. But we knew in a section already before we start even playing the first note with the whole orchestra.
And I think it's the knowledge that we knew he would hear it. If you've got a conductor who isn't really bothered about these
he will
things.
hear it. Yeah, he will hear it. And
so,
also,
when you're playing, you know that he'll notice if you don't get
No. Also, responsibility in that case was mine, because, I knew he would hear it. And then I feel responsible now. That thing have to be done. And everybody,
And I'm much further from his ears, but I still knew he would hear it. And he would still know who it was.
Yeah, he knew. He had an amazing ear.
Yes.
Yeah.
And I can only think that he wrote those long letters and was able to do all that attention to detail because he didn't drive a car. Because he was in the back of a chauffeur-driven car, or he was on a train, and he would be working on the scores and thinking of all those passages which he wanted right.
Yeah. But also remember, he was conducting one Mahler symphony, I don't know what it was, but something went completely wrong. And he was conducting from memory. And immediately he just very cool had stopped this, brought that one, in 30 seconds he corrected the whole thing from memory.
Yes.
And afterwards, having a chat with him, I said, how do you manage that? Because, so it's just what do you do? It's memory. He said, well, he could see the score in his head. He could see it, and he knew exactly what went wrong. And then that it's like looking at the score.
Yes.
He had it here.
Yes. We've talked about attention to detail in Mahler, haven't we? And I think that that's a good way to approach Elgar, because Elgar was writing post-Strauss, post-Mahler, and using all those techniques of lots of detail, violins divided into many parts, and Simon was able to hear all those parts and get them exactly right in the balance and get the detail right. And then forget it and get the overview. And I think that really paid off in the Elgar Concerto, particularly the last movement, where there's so much going on. And also in Gerontius, where, again, there is so much detail apart from the chorus and the singers. Mm. I think Simon has a very sort of sensuous side, doesn't he? You know, he loves sort of richness and excess and good food and good wine, and I think that Szymanowski was really his sort of composer, you know, because it's very perfumed, you know, it's very sort of excessive and a little decadent, and
but it's also quite a natural extension from Debussy and Ravel. And you push those boundaries a little bit further. So you master the Debussy, then you take it a step further, and then what's next? And if you find something that is the what's next, then it's quite natural. But the fact that people didn't know it so well, I guess, made it look unusual. But in musical terms, it probably wasn't that unusual.
No.
And I think, as you say, he'd cut his teeth on sorting out a very complicated score in Debussy's Jeux. Yeah. You know, again, divided into many, many parts in the strings, you know, and sorting out all those parts, getting them balanced. And then something like Szymanowski, who does the same sort of thing, but to a slightly different effect. But it's still the same method, really. It's getting all the details sorted and then getting the sound right, so that you're not just hearing lots and lots of detail, you're hearing this amazing atmosphere.
Yeah. It's funny because we're talking about Szymanowski now, like we're talking about Mozart. And 25 years ago, 22 years ago, you know, it's like a name. But now it's thanks to these guys, you know, people who actually push the boundaries.
Nicola Benedetti's favourite concerto.
But you're talking about details in Debussy. I remember also one of the very important things he had as well is that he will own his own material. Remember, all the scores, all
the music we played from was his, wasn't it?
But because he was not fanatic, but he was felt strong about his voice or his idea or his marking. He wouldn't spend time in the rehearsal say, well, I want to start up or down. The music was already marked.
Yes.
Every detail was there. For that, half a battle was won already, because by the time you know when you see those markings, you knew exactly what he wanted. And
it saved so much time in rehearsal.
You know, it's conducted.
And yet he wanted more rehearsal.
But
at least he was spending it on useful stuff.
The music was clean, very well written, he knew exactly what he wanted, no messing about. That was his thing. Mahler, all the Mahler symphonies, all the difficult bits, everything was just marked in the way he wanted.
I think he had some young years when he was spending all his time just trying to persuade people to play for him in orchestras for nothing, you know, and desperate to conduct. And I think that must have really bottled up this enthusiasm for getting things absolutely right for when the day arrives and you've got your professional orchestra, you know, you've got to get everything absolutely ready for that. What you want to do.
Well, you do.
Don't waste time. Yeah. Something came to mind when you were talking about the detail in Jeux and the fact that he was a percussionist at heart. I mean, he had been playing percussion, hadn't he? Briefly as a professional, and his sense of rhythm was always, it was just very important to him. Yeah, and those pieces that have a lot of detail plus rhythmic detail, like the Turangalila Symphony, for instance, where the only way you'll get that detail together is if everybody understands those rhythms and does them exactly right. And it was the same with Debussy's Jeux as well. And it's more difficult for string players. We're playing lyrical instruments, really, and what he brought to the CBSO really was a sense of rhythm, especially in the strings, you know, where there was not so much before. This idea that we all had to play at the same time, you know, as the percussionist at the back or as the wind players. And he spent a lot of time sorting rhythms out and trying to get everybody's triplets the same as each other.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. But also he didn't do it in a way saying that, follow me. He wants you to understand what's happening. And he will put all different parts together, triangle and first and seconds, and timpani. Listen to this, this because
so
he wanted
move just before
he wanted everybody to understand how the whole thing was built and composed. For him, it wasn't enough just to be together. He wanted everybody to, and that's the way we learned those pieces with him.
Yes.
We learn those pieces so well, we know exactly what's going on.
Exactly, it's so safe, isn't it? So if anybody does rock the rhythm, we know exactly what to do because we know what happens next and what fits in where. Yeah.
No, but something always nice about Simon, if you see him even outside CBSO, you meet him in the street in London or in Berlin. I met him once in Berlin because we were friends there. And he always stops and give you a big hug and say, hello, how are you, how are the boys, So always ask you personal questions.
Yes, that's right. I mean, maybe that's why he had the parties, because he wanted to get to know who our other halves were and our kids.
You always make you feel kind of special about it. Last time he came here last year, he came and conducted us Brahms Symphony. My two boys came to hear the rehearsal because they grew up knowing Simon, and as soon as he saw them backstage, he went to say hello to them. And I think that's something quite important in a relationship with the orchestra.
I think it's a great skill, really.
He remember the names.
Yes, exactly. Yeah.
And it's true. My boys, they were a bit shy.
Yeah.
But it's also that loyalty that he has. He's been loyal to his friends, whether it's his mentors like John Carew. He's just remained loyal to the people he's grown up with and the people that he's worked with, like us. So remember, he came to our concert that we did in Lucerne. And he came backstage and said hello to everybody and remembered all our names and and how things were.
And also he did a concert for the Benevolent Fund last year.
Yes, that's right. That's money that goes directly to the players' benefit. Yeah.
For free, he came and conducted.
I just remember the sound of that rehearsal. I mean, there's nobody in the hall, and it sounded like we were playing to a packed house. It was really on fire, wasn't it?
He has that way of demanding it without demanding it, if you know what I mean, expecting it. Yeah. It was never a rehearsal. It was always you're playing for your life.
I think in any place of work, if the boss works harder than you do all the time, then you can't do anything else, can you? You have to.
Yeah, because he never took it easy. In the rehearsal, he never took. He was 100% full on.
So we certainly need that benevolent fund when he was around. Yeah.